So I have a question actually dovetailing off of what was just talked about in terms of housing. So what has the Horns Committee, so what is that, the Housing Redevelopment Neighborhood Services Committee you're the chair of, what are some ideas that you've been kind of brainstorming within that committee to help make housing more affordable? And what I don't understand is why is it that local municipalities aren't allowed to create policy around more affordable housing when, what does the charter say, the code say in within Aurora as to what kind of power the city council has when it comes to creating more affordable housing? Because as far as I know, like local government, as long as they're abiding by the charter and the code, they are allowed to do whatever they want, set whatever laws they want. So I just need some more clarity around that. And then also, what would happen if the city council did go about creating laws about creating more affordable housing? So what's it called? Inclusionary zoning. So that is like one thing that could be done right within the city in order to make housing more affordable. You have to have like the political will to do that. But like, I don't see like in the Horns committees, like you guys talking about like that, like what kind of zoning could work? What kind of inclusionary zoning can we have in order to benefit both developers and the private sector and the public sector and actually the people of Aurora? So I don't know, like, can you give us your take on all of that and like, based on what I just said, what can be done going forward?
I'll do my best to answer. I know you walked in a little bit late, so we were actually doing kind of an exercise where we were talking about issues we wanted to hear about. So I heard some very specific questions, but just so you know where we're at in the agenda. So we are a home rule city, meaning, you know, there's certain things that we can put in place, but we can't go against state law, right? State law takes precedence. So there's a lot we could do, but specifically in regard to the last question, if we are prohibited by the state will always come first in terms of the order of operations in terms of law. So as much as I would want to, or anybody would want to pass something locally on that particular issue, that's just not possible. That's not how that works. I think you were asking about the policy committee. So we come up with topics around different housing strategies, but the housing committee, that conversation around what's possible doesn't just happen in that policy committee, right? That happens as a full body. There's only 3 of us on that policy committee. So we could unanimously pass a recommendation out of that policy committee, and when you go for a full vote of 10 council members and only 3 of them potentially support it, it's not gonna pass to simplify that. But in the past, like the Horns Committee, the Housing Committee, is where we've talked about our affordable housing strategy. We earlier in the conversation, we were talking about the different resources we have for folks experiencing homelessness. We talk about kind of those resources in that policy committee. I don't have a memory of every meeting, but I know we've also talked about like motel redevelopment strategies, right, along the Colfax corridor. And then at the end of the day, you know, who can help fund, a particular project. When the federal ARPA dollars came down, that was something that I was hopeful that we could continue to invest in more affordable housing, but it's a drop in the bucket, right? So not that there isn't anything to do. So I appreciate you continuing to keep wanting to push and to learn more. You're welcome to continue participating in those meetings if there's a particular topic. I am setting the agenda for that policy committee too, and I would encourage you to reach out to the other council members on that committee too. I know they would love to hear your thoughts, and let's have a discussion. But we don't just talk about housing in that committee. We've talked about like owning ducks, for example. Like what's the quality of life type of conversation too. So it's not a perfect answer, but happy to follow up offline too. Yeah. Does anyone else want to share topics they want to talk about?
Hi, Crystal. It's nice to see you.
Hi.
So I have several questions. The first one, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm going to put you on the spot. What is your standard or policy around responding to constituents emailing you?
I try to answer as best as I can. And then when that's not possible, in a timely manner, try to tag team my staff to be able to address the different constituent issues.
And what would you say, because you've been in office for over 5-6 years now, what would you say is your average response time? What have you established as your average response time?
I don't have a average that I could share. I'm happy to follow up with you if you have any concerns.
Well, I have emailed you and you haven't followed up. So
well, you're right.
I hope that you would
yes.
go find it out, because that's why I came here today.
Absolutely.
Because I thought, well, I appreciate you're busy. I appreciate city council is part-time. It shouldn't be. But I'm a businesswoman.
Yeah.
And if I didn't answer my emails, I wouldn't be in business.
I hear you. Happy to connect.
I would appreciate that. I also wanted to know, very specifically, around some safety issues, and perhaps the police officer here can address this in some manner. In the last 6 months, my car has been broken into 3 times. Because I have it protected well, it has not been stolen, but it has cost me several $1,000s. I do have a 1-car garage, which was a storage unit, so that was my bad. It is now holding my car, so it won't be broken in for a 4th time. It was stolen off of 6th and Havana a year ago. I know this is not unique, and I know Aurora, I think, is the #2 city in the country for car robberies. What, if anything, is the police trying to do, because I appreciate it's like herding cats, what are you making recommendations to your citizens? What is the policy around it? Is there like a big car ring you guys have broken down into? I would love some insight around anything that you can share with us around what is being done around this, because I'm sure I'm not the only one, and I've filed my police reports, so I'm sure you have some statistics you could share.
What are some things that you are optimistic about this year in City Council, and what are some things that you're pessimistic about? What do you think are some things that you can get done? Some bipartisan things, compromise. What's on the agenda? What do you see getting done? What do you see not getting done? What's most important to you this year with the Aurora City Council?
So we did kind of evolve into a Q&A, so I was hoping before we get to that question, it's a good question, just to scan and see if anyone else has any topics, right? I really just want to hear, what are other topics do you guys want to hear about? I heard policing, specific strategies, crime prevention. I am working with it's like a smaller financing organization. It's the Rocky Mountain Microfinance Institute. I think March's town hall is going to be centered around small business resources. There's actually grants available specifically and only for this part of Aurora. If you have a small business, there are also more affordable business loans. So just know that that's already kind of in conversation, but what are other general topics that you want to hear more about that we can bring as next month's or future month's topics?
Would it be possible, like in the future, to have some more information about youth prevention programs and maybe incentives, for youth students completing the programs?
Yes, youth violence prevention, youth activities. Jonathan, I think you were mentioning some funding that we're trying to figure out how to deal with.
Yeah, we actually have a really good program. Well, it's not necessarily a program, but the city was given a pretty substantial grant from the sale of the Broncos this last year. And we are in the early stages of seeing how to, and the grant specifies that it has to be spent on youth services. It doesn't say specifically on what. So my colleagues and I at the Community Engagement Division are going to be spending the months of February and March, possibly into early April, surveying the community. We're looking to get information from parents, youth themselves, and youth service providers, so anybody who works in that capacity. And then we also work very closely with Joseph D. Herrera, who's our manager of youth violence prevention. And so as soon as we get the survey results back, that's when we're going to start taking proposals from city entities, external entities. I know the library system is going to put in a proposal. Parks and Rec is going to put in a proposal. The school districts are very interested. I mean, it's actually a pretty substantial grant, so we have an opportunity to do a lot of good in the area of youth violence prevention. So hang in there. Also, if anybody's interested, please take my card. If you are a parent, if you are a youth service provider, please reach out to me and we'll make sure that you're included on that survey.
Thank you for that. I know that for Aurora Public Schools, I know for a fact that they have after the school closes or whatever the school day, there is a possibility for renting their spaces. And I wish they would have said, yes, we can work with you, whatever, when they were here. But they're hopefully thinking about it. But I know there's a lot of neighborhoods who would benefit, engaging, or providing maybe support in, the partnership to benefit those students in that community, to prevent them from being out and about and just wandering and bored. We have a lot of parents that work late or in different shifts, and they're not at home a lot of the time. So those kids are the ones wandering around, stealing cars, and so I'm glad to hear about the grant.
And unfortunately, this is not a narrative that's new. When we talk to parents in Aurora, especially in Northwest Aurora, and that I think that there is an overwhelming, feeling. And of course, I'm not the sole decision maker with where the funding will go, but that is where we do want to make a difference. Is when we talk about Northwest Aurora, these at-risk youth, teen, young adults. And I know that we worked, the Parks and Rec Pros Department actually has some programs initially that they had done through they did kind of a similar process with a smaller grant last year. And they did free days and had some opportunities for the youth to come and engage in, places like, this rec center, come play basketball instead of just being out on the streets, So there's a couple of programs in place, but we're definitely looking to expand upon that because we're very aware of that problem.
Is there a possibility for let's say the city to provide security, for the schools if that were to happen and the partnership with our public schools happens? Is that a possibility? Would they be able to provide, safe spaces for the students so nothing happens when the kids are engaged in activities, but they need to be supervised, so,
And that's a really good question. I think that's kind of what's really great about this grant is that it is so broad. I mean, it's pretty rare that broad legislation leads to good things, but in the interest of youth services, we can kind of, that idea is not necessarily off the table. So that's why we need input from community members like yourself to say, this is what we would find valuable, because I think that's one of the biggest things that we hear at these meetings is that the city makes decisions for us and we can't make decisions for ourselves. And this, you as members of this city, we want to empower you. We want to hear your voices. We want to see, because you know your children, you know your children's school systems, and saying, this is what we need, because frankly, a lot of the times, I'm a parent, but my daughter's 3 months old, so her needs are going to be very different than the needs of a teenager. So, this is where we need the community to chime in. So I love that idea, and we're looking for more ideas like that. And then, as soon as we get a good compound list of ideas, that's when we're going to start taking proposals and getting some motion going on these grants.
Thank you very much. I work for a high school, and I work with our counselors and parents directly. So this is where my feedback and my information is coming from. Not necessarily from one person, but I represent a lot of parents and students.
Absolutely, and I very much value your feedback. Thank you. And I'm gonna slide you my card here. So I do hope that you engage and you reach out to us and take that survey. And we may even see because we're going to be doing a lot of interacting with some of the high schools and some of the high school organizations. So we will definitely be around. Right. Here. I think.
Yeah.
Oh, this gentleman here.
Yeah.
Let him go first.
Are you sure? Okay. There you go.
All right, so Crystal, I know that you were on the RTD, what was the board called? That RTD board that made recommendations for policies for RTD. You were the chair of that committee.
Well, you said I was on it, so I figured you'd know the name.
Yeah, I just forgot the name.
This is the RTD Accountability Committee.
Okay, so yeah, the RTD Accountability Committee. So you guys came up with a proposal as to how RTD could improve. What items from that proposal were actually implemented by RTD? And I'm actually interested in, you asked what are we interested in? I'm interested in public transit. So yeah, so what policies, recommendations were implemented from that board, from RTD? And then also what kinds of things can the Aurora City Council do this year going forward to improve public transportation?
Yeah, so once that committee was over, we made our recommendations, we were kind of done. So it was really advisory in nature, so I don't know what RTD has implemented. Would be interesting to maybe bring them for a presentation to see, kind of what changes have happened. It was really advisory, so I would like to think that I had, specific ability to influence their decisions, but like we were clear from the beginning that it was kind of temporary and advisory. A title's a title, but if I'm not on the board, I'm not part of RTD staff, so I couldn't guarantee any of those things. So we try to work really closely with them so that they were like the most feasible recommendations, and hopefully that meant that they would adopt them. But hey, that's a potential conversation or presentation moving forward. So since you mentioned transportation, if we can manage it, would that be something you're interested in?
Yeah, definitely. Are there any policies that you would recommend for RTD?
I don't think I could possibly opine. There's a lot there. But you asked me also earlier some of the things that I'm really excited about. And specifically one I want to mention was around bus rapid transit along the Colfax corridor. So the idea is that the buses coming up and down the corridor, Colfax corridor, connecting the downtown area and the Anschutz Medical Campus, the two major business hubs, right, employment hubs, for both Denver and Aurora via Colfax more efficiently, right? I don't know if y'all have taken the 15 or the 15L. It can take a while. It doesn't always feel the most safe. And there's Denver passed a specific bond. They raised money specifically to do like a center running lane for bus rapid transit. So theirs is going to look a little bit different. But actually, our current city manager, in his former city of Tulsa, Oklahoma, implemented bus rapid transit. So what you'll see is we'll have bus rapid transit. It won't look the same as it will in Denver because we didn't have a specific source of funding as Denver did to make a center running lane. And to be honest, we don't have like the same outlets in and out of our city on the kind of peripheral streets. So we don't have streets aside from Colfax and like Montview, but the immediate streets next to Colfax don't go all the way through. So from a traffic standpoint, we were talking about traffic earlier, that wouldn't have been feasible. But long story short, I'm really excited that we are actively investing in the design of what that will look like once the bus hits Aurora. So while it won't be in the center, like we don't have space to create a center lane, the point and the goal is to design it so that it's more ADA accessible. We've also talked about like a ticket system that happens before you load the enter the bus, so you're not stopping, waiting for people to pay. Those are like little things that actually add up to more efficient transit, and the goal is to have it running like a bus every like 4 to 7 minutes, I think, right? Now you could wait, who knows, right? I know you've probably seen, I know you ride public transit, so you've seen like the upgrades of the shelters for the buses too, and my goal is to get those with like a real-time bus schedule, not just like a printed one. Like the printed one's nice, but it doesn't really follow, the bus doesn't ever follow the printed schedule, right? There's always a reason why it gets held up. So a real-time kind of ticker that you would see, like you could rely that this bus is coming. Because frankly, when I was part of that accountability committee, something that I heard a lot was that people just didn't believe like that it would actually ever come. And I've talked to folks, I think even yourself, that the bus actually never came. You had to wait an entire 30 minutes, and that's unacceptable. Where we can control that, and we've invested like actual dollars so that the bus rapid transit doesn't just stop at the Denver-Aurora border, that we actually also get to benefit from that. So I think we had a presentation last year actually where we had the engineers come and talk about the different stops. I'm happy to dig that up and send that to you. But that is something related to your transit interest that I am actually looking forward to. I think that could mean so much for our economic development here, just to get to and from